I'm going to talk about consent today. And I'm going to talk about consent in the way that I've done a few videos about the divine feminine rising, and we're seeing it rising, and there's evidence of it rising. And if you look at things from like an eagle's perch, from a higher perspective, if you can, because we are in the midst of chaos, right? And what is consent? If you're a woman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Women have not given their consent for hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years, about things that have happened to us, our bodies, our lives, our rights. When was it? 3 years ago, they overturned Roe versus Wade, this bullshit with the SAVE Act, trying to take away women's rights to votes. Now, women are not giving their consent. We're not giving our consent on any of this, right? Stuck in marriages and relationships that are toxic and abusive because financially, fiscally, they have to. There's no consent given, right? Women are disregarded, pushed to the side. If you look at any woman who, comes forward and says that they were treated a certain way, they're not believed. They're asked, why were they there? They're asked what they were wearing. It's like, why don't we believe the woman, right? Oh, well, you can't believe her. You can't believe her. And then 100 women show up, and then people will be like, oh, well, maybe, there's something to this story, right? So we're seeing all of this playing out globally. We're seeing it in the big screen. We're seeing it with the epi files, it's very simple, right? Like, just believe the women. The women have come forward. All you have to do is believe the women, right? So all of this was taken without their consent. So what I'm saying is, when I see like things shifting, I just look at things from like a different perspective, and I wanted to share. I find it super interesting that we have gone to, whatever you want to call it, a war with Iran, right? We decided that we were going to bomb another country. Now, whatever you feel about Iran or not, and their regime, let's take that out of it. That, whether you agree with what they're doing, talking about women being, oppressed and suppressed, in their government. I'm talking about our government. So they go in and they do this without the consent of Congress. Without the consent. There was no consent given. And they also didn't get the consent from these allies that we are losing faster than anything. As the United States, we're losing our allies. No other country besides I'm talking about, real, who has their own agenda going after that, the Persian, I'll call it the Persian countries, nobody else gave their consent. And from the few pieces of information that you get, because if you don't think that our governments and are suppressing the news, then I don't know, maybe you aren't paying attention. But we're not getting the full story, and it's getting to the point where we have to start asking ourselves, like, does this story, we're getting a lot of AI, does this story feel real? Does this feel right? You have to go into your emotional body and not what you're shown anymore, and ask yourself that question. If something doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. But when I'm talking about the divine feminine and why I was saying that we're witnessing it, this is what I'm talking about. This administration is doing things, right? And the people that supported the administration in Congress are feeling what it feels like to not have given your consent for something and having to live with the consequences of what is happening. And I see the administration asking all these other countries. He's mean and mad because every other country that he is asking for help right now because they went in thinking that they knew what they were doing, which obviously they don't know what they're doing because look who works for this administration. You got drunks, losers, abusers, and liars who work for him. I mean, like attracts like, so that's what you get. And all these allies are like, no, we didn't agree to this. No. Oh, and then you get threatened. Oh, well, we're going to raise tariffs. We're going to, not trade. Okay, whatever. We'll just make other things without you. And so they're getting to feel like what it feels like for women when you don't give your consent, when you don't ask and get consent from other countries, how isolating that feels when you are the receiver of whatever atrocity has happened. And that is what I am. If you can understand my thought process, when I'm looking at it from a higher perspective, I'm thinking, now you know. I mean, I don't know. They're not going to get it, right? They're not going to get it. But when you don't get consent to do something from somebody else, or to somebody else, another country in this example, you become isolated because of everything else around you, right? Your rights, your autonomy was taken away, right? Without your consent. And people are starting to stand up and saying, you know what? I didn't give my consent for this. So no, I don't have to help you. No. And like I said, they aren't going to feel it because they're not going to associate it. But what I'm looking at it from a perspective is, now you know what it feels like. Now you know what it feels like to be isolated, right? Now you know, because you didn't respect someone else, another country, for example, and get consent and have alliances and form a kind of workable relationship. And now you're alone. You're alone, because that is how a lot of women have felt throughout history when our consent was not given for anything else that was taken from us. Because women didn't give their consent to have to ask their husband's permission, right? And segregated religion does this too, right? Like, why are women not priests? Come on. Like, if women want to be priests, why? Because men said so? Like, so this is just another rumbling of the rising of the divine feminine that is saying, you have taken without our consent. And now you're going to know what it feels like when you're all alone, okay? And you're isolated because of lack of respect for other people, for other countries, for other, cultures, because you think you know better and you want it, so you just take it. Well, good. And that's how I see another aspect of the divine feminine is rising. Because if this was 20 years ago, a lot of these countries, whether they wanted to or not, would have bowed down and they would have said, okay, we'll help you and we'll support you. And he is mean and mad and now threatening to pull out of NATO. Fine, pull out of NATO. They don't care about you anymore, right? You're not afraid of the bully anymore. All right. But I'm just associating it with this divine feminine because that's what I've been talking about a lot lately. That's what I've been kind of like trying to show signs. Like, so if you can take your emotions out of it, it's hard. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, right? But if you can step back and you can take your emotions out of it and take the fear out of it, because like attracts like, right? So the more we give something energy to, the more we create that energy, right? So I don't listen to the news, but I know enough to be informed and I know what I need to know. And that's important. But I'm also looking at it from a different perspective. I'm trying to see it from the greater perspective, the more mystical perspective, the shift in what's happening in timelines perspective. And this is just another example of how The old structures are no longer standing. And I'm seeing the divine feminine raising where women are saying no more, right? We're saying no more. We don't give you our consent. And other countries now are saying no more, America. We're not giving our consent to your bad behavior, right? America has been a bully since it was formed, right? Thinks they know better than every other country, thinks they know better than every other culture, thinks they know how to run things better. And, it's now a time for us to, have our come to Jesus moment, like our come to Jesus moment. No, you're not the big boy on the block anymore, and nobody cares about you, and we will leave you behind. And I just am seeing the administration feeling like what that feels like, to be on the other side of that, like women have for generations. We never gave our consent for you to take our autonomy away. I can promise you, no woman, I don't care if you're right, you're left, you're blue, you're purple, you're green, you're yellow, you're orange, okay, wants somebody else telling them what they can do with their own bodies. Whether you're pro or against, doesn't matter. It's your body. You don't want anybody else telling you what to do with it. I can promise you deep down, that is how every single woman feels. And if you don't feel like you would want to go, for pro-abortion, then that is your right. But that's your choice. That's my point. Right? And men have been taking what they want from women for too long, for too many generations. And I'm seeing the parallels about consent and women and what is happening with this administration, with other countries and alliances. And I think it's great. As terrible as it is, looking at it from the bigger picture, this is the beginning of the downfall so that things can change. So if you can, if you're not in, obviously, if you're living in a war-torn area right now, I pray for you, and it's about your survival and your family's survival. But if you are here in the U.S., safe in your own home, don't go down the propaganda rabbit hole and look at things from a bigger perspective. Just look at it from a different perspective. Try to be like an eagle looking down and just be a witness. Don't add fear to it. Imagine what you want the world to look like. What I want the world to look like is that everybody has rights over their own choices, their own bodies, who they love, their own families. That's what I want. It's really not that hard. Leave people the F alone and let them be. Really, that's it. Love who you love, be who you want to be, and leave people alone and stop telling them what they can do with their bodies. And keep your hands to yourself. It's really not that hard. It's not that hard. You know that old saying, treat others as you want them to treat you? Yeah, just do that and we'll be all right. All right, so I just wanted to give you my perspective. You may think I'm crazy, but I see it. I feel it. I can sense it. I see it coming. It's going to be a rocky road, maybe another, some time that we have to go through, but yeah, we are moving and things are moving rapidly. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I would love it if you would, like the videos and subscribe, and, keep me posted on how you're doing and how you're feeling, and let me know what you see. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.